viewers, and welcome to another OnSide SA Soccer Show. We're recording the show on a Wednesday, and as is racing at Greyville, Paul is unavailable to be in the studio at present. But joining us from his Fulham studio will be our regular UK correspondent, Stevie Braham, where we'll be going through the English Premiership and Championship. The PSL, there are 7 games today, so we're not going to be doing the PSL segment in this show. We kick off as always with our post-net last one standing competition. And finally, our carryover competition from last season has been won. Marco Gavia correctly predicted Fulham, who beat Brentford 3-1. While our runner-up, Ken Moby, unfortunately was on Chelsea's side. Most people know that a keeper sent off in 5 minutes and ended up losing 2-1. So to Marco Gavia, a man I had a couple of pints with yesterday, congratulations. Our first competition of the season heading into round 5, we had 208 entries. 117 were successful. 64 were on Liverpool, 21 on Fulham, 18 on Crystal Palace and 4 on Leeds United. The unfortunate guys that went out were on Aston Villa, Wolves, Tottenham, Bournemouth, Sunderland, Notts Forest, Burnley, Arsenal, Brighton, Chelsea, Newcastle and West Ham. Our pick of the round this week was on Leeds United. 4 guys were on them: Julie Usher, Lionel Isaacs, Craig Simpson and Matthew Knacky. We have 9 ladies that remain and 19 internationals are still left. Special mention goes to guys that I haven't mentioned this season: Bruce Armstrong, Jeff Scrooby, Lagan, Sean Fenger, Gareth Farrer, Jordan Story, Kevin Rice, Brett Galley, Warren Kidd, Gavin Craigie, Ben McElligott, Blaine Hamilton, Des and Gary Foree, Clint Heap, Lee Besnard, Shane Botha, Henry Nordie, Graham Pazane, Craig Simpson, Lawrence Verners, Mark Jackson, Sean Cullen, Beto Quintus, Phil Giorgio, Rodney Boyson, Jesse Nagel, Don Barker, Ozzy De Gea, Kelton Thunder, Dane Mamet, and Eddie Lloyd. Guys, it's rugby in the weekend here in Durban, so I need your pick latest Saturday, 12:30 South African time. So please, guys, it looks fairly straightforward, but get studying. Now go over to our UK correspondent, Steve. Good morning. A lot of League Cup results last night, but just having a look at the teams, most of the top club, including yours, rotated.
Yeah, I think that you expect that, especially if you've got, like for ourselves, playing against a team in a lower league. Marco Silva rested all 11 that started against Brentford. Yeah. Having said that, we still put out a strong side and made heavy work of it, but it's all about sort of making sure you don't get injuries and getting into the next round, which is what we did. So, and I think looking at some of the other teams, but virtually all the Premier League teams sort of rested players.
Yeah, of all the results, Chelsea beat Lincoln 2-1 away. They came from 1-0 down. Wolves, I watched that game. They beat Everton, who rotated until the last 20 minutes before they brought Jack Grealish and co on. Brighton beat Barnsley 6-0. Burnley were upset at home by Cardiff City. Fulham beat Cambridge and Liverpool. And we'll discuss it now with Hugo Ekitike's red card. Scored late on to beat Southampton. There are 4 games on tonight. I know Arsenal and Man City are playing, but it's not worth mentioning as I'm sure they are going to rotate. On to the weekend and the betting we'll bring up now. But the first game, Steve, Brentford, Man United. Brentford, you saw them on Saturday. I thought they were woeful, especially after scoring first.
They were pretty poor. Yeah, I mean, I was thought it would be a much closer game than it was, and in the end we were sort of worthy winners. They were very disappointing, Brentford. They looked a bit slow at the back. They, when you look at the players they sold, I mean, obviously they sold their strike force, Mbeumo and Visser, and they haven't really replaced them. And they got Sade up front, but in all honesty, they really didn't look very potent. And I think that they could struggle. And much as I normally don't back United, I think that they should be too strong for them.
Yeah, I'm only concerned with United. We are slow starters, and with the 3 centre halves, which is not going to change. I think Brentford are just going to send everything into the box, Steve. It looked like that they've done it all season, and I don't know who's going to be in goal goal for United. I wouldn't take 11 to 10 Man United. Our record there is terrible. If I was going to have a bet, I would back Brentford to score first at 13 to 10, but I think this is going to be a desperate encounter. Can't believe they've made it lunchtime kickoff, maybe to get it out the way. But United, great result against Chelsea. Fortunate. It's time we put a couple of results together and definitely need the 3 points here. Steve, I've watched the betting on this game. Liverpool have drifted all week. They're now 9 to 10 Wednesday morning. I think that's a great price. I know they lost the Charity Shield, but Liverpool should have won that game. I think Liverpool will beat Palace. Do you?
I think they will, but when you look at Palace, I think it's 17 now, unbeaten League and Cup. I mean, it's pretty impressive. They've been fortunate. They haven't lost too many players. Walton was out for a little while, and having sort of sold Eze, I think a lot of people thought, they might struggle, but they've carried on. Haven't lost. Had a couple of very good away wins, so I think they'll make it tight. I think Liverpool are going to have to be. They're going to have to, if they're going to win games and win this league, they've got to start scoring earlier than in the last 10 minutes of games. So, I think you're right. I think Liverpool should be favourites. It's a game that they normally do. They're normally close encounters, but I fancy Liverpool to win and break Palace's unbeaten record.
Yeah, I think 8.5, 9 to 10. I think that's a great price. The other price I like was 9 to 10 Liverpool to score over 1.5 goals. I just think they'll score early, dictate the play, and they'll have too much for a game, Forest. Chelsea Brighton, Steve, they mentioned in the show, the last one standing, the goalkeeper getting sent off. It always amazes me. The keeper comes out, he can't get it. Why not just stand? Even if he does knock it over your head and it goes in, rather let him chance that, because I don't think he would have got the ball anyway, because the left back was covering and so was the right back. Down to 10 men, they had no chance, even after Casemiro. But Brighton, they're going to give them a game. I watched the Brighton-Tottenham game. Dangerous team, Brighton, and I think they can cause an upset here, Steve. What do you think?
Yeah, well, they have in the past. I mean, they've not been. Chelsea have not found it easy to beat Brighton, home or away. I think Chelsea probably starts as favourites, But again, I'm just not quite sure whether he knows what his best 11 is. And again, as you say, with the goalkeeper sent off, he's got to rotate that position. Brighton will give it a go. I don't think they're quite. Again, they played very well against Tottenham early on, but in the end, Tottenham were was strong. I think Chelsea might just edge this, but I think it's going to be pretty close.
Yeah, I would say they should, but it's hard to trust. And Cole Palmer, it looks like he's out, Steve, is that right?
Yeah, it sounds like he could be out for a little while. So, and they'll miss him. He adds that little bit of quality. So, I think on the back of that, I still fancy Chelsea, but I think it could be maybe sort of 1-0, 2-1 sort of game. Yeah,
if I'm going to have a bet, I look at the bookings, because Cucurella, a couple of them have come from Brighton, so I think it'll be nice and fasty. So the bookings at over 4.5 at 8.5 to 10 is worth considering, but I think it should be a cracker of a game. Steve, Man City, Burnley. I know Man City, they looked a little bit sluggish, or I couldn't believe how we backed off against Arsenal. But they've got a Champions League game in midweek. I think they're going to get this game over with nice and early and then just cruise, to the end of 90 minutes. I've looked at all Man City to win both halves is my suggestion at 12 to 10. I like the look of that. And also 6.5 to 10 to score in both halves. Do you give Burnley any chance, Steve?
I'd be very surprised if they get anything. I'm not even sure they'll score. Yeah. I fancy City to win fairly comfortably. And I think, as you say, if they get themselves into sort of 2 or 3 goal lead with sort of 20, 30 minutes, I think they'll sort of take off some key players. He doesn't want to risk the Haalands or Rodris when they've got Champions League games coming up. I thought Phil Foden looks like he's getting back into it. And
he did. You're
Pep
right.
seems to have decided that he's back in the team, because he was sort of in and out. So I think City should win this. I wouldn't be surprised if they win it by 2 or 3. Yeah,
the other 2 bets I like was, Steve said, Man City to win to 0 is 9 to 10. I mean, over 2.5 goals, both teams to score no. It's 22 to 10. I think that's a great price. I wouldn't be backing the correct score, but I saw 3-0 at 65 to 10, so worth an interest if you love the correct score market. Leeds United, Bournemouth, Steve. I was all over Bournemouth. I needed him to score first the other day. How the guy was offside, I don't know. He should get fined a week's salary for I don't know what was over his mind, but anyway, Leeds United fighting hard, great result at Wolves. I didn't see it coming. Of the two sides, I like Bournemouth, Steve. I'm really impressed, but this isn't going to be an easy game for them.
No, I think you're right. That was I was disappointed with Leeds when they played at Fulham the week before. They were fairly defensive, but as you say, at Wolves, they went a goal down, and then they really turned it on in the first half. The last sort of 15, 20 minutes, took the game to them. So I think this could be a close game. Wouldn't be surprised if this ends up a draw. I think Bournemouth, are having a really good season. I wasn't overly impressed with them against Newcastle. It was a bit of a scrappy performance. But I think Leeds at home, if they are going to stay up, it's at home where they're going to need to pick up some points. And so I think it's going to be a low-scoring game, but it could be quite good.
Yeah, I just think this is going to be feisty. I just like what I see from Bournemouth, They can play against Newcastle. I couldn't believe Newcastle played 3 centre-halves against them. So obviously a lot of respect. The service to Evan Nielsen up front was terrible. But I like what I see from them, Steve. And if I have to go for one of the sides, I'm going to definitely chance Bournemouth. On to our second page in a game. Don't know what to make of Notts Forest, Steve. But I think the fans will be expecting a home victory against Sunderland.
I think you're right, but when you look at the results since Andrew's gone there, they've had 2 3-0 defeats and a draw, and it sounded like sort of Burnley were giving them a bit of a run around in the second half. So they've certainly not hit apart from that opening game when all went well for them, with 3 up, and since then. They've been, it's just scraped a couple of points. I think this could be a pretty tough game for them. Yeah. I think that Sunderland, surprised everybody, and they really have. And even last week, 1-0 down to 10 men, and they came back. Isadora has scored in all 3 home games. So I fancy Forest, but I think Sunderland are going to make it pretty hard for them.
Yeah, I watched Sunderland when they played the second half against Crystal Palace, and they were well organised. I think Granit Xhaka in the midfield's been the best signing of the season so far. He's come in at relatively a small price. He's done a great job for them. And you can see the guidance, everything he says, all the younger players, he's got them organised. And it wouldn't surprise me, Steve, if this ends up in a draw. But Forest, I know Ange has come with a reputation, but if he doesn't get a result here, I think a lot of boys are going to be on his case. But of the two sides, you've got to fancy them, but this won't be easy. Under 2.5 goals would be my suggestion at 9 to 10. Tottenham Wolves, Steve. I was impressed with Tottenham, except for the first 20 minutes where we knew Brighton would come out. But the longer the game went on, Tottenham should have won. I think they'll destroy Wolves. You agree?
Yeah, I think they'll be too strong. Look, Wolves are struggling in the league. I know they had that League Cup success last night, but in the league, 5 straight defeats. You fancy Tottenham to get back to winning ways, and I'd be surprised if they don't win, by at least a couple.
Yeah, that Strand Larsen came back, so obviously that's a major positive for Wolves. But I think I've liked what I've seen so far from Spurs. Couple of bets that I liked. Spurs to win to 0 was 15 to 10, but my main bet is Spurs to score in both halves at 13 to 10. That's my suggestion in that particular game. Steve, Aston Villa, Fulham. What's going on with Villa?
Well, look, I think they really started poorly. They got themselves ahead last week. Great goal from Matty Cash. Yeah. Couldn't hold on against 10 men. And it does make you wonder. I know there seems to be some financial constraints there. They've just lost their sort of director of operations, director of football, Monchi, who was evidently responsible for bringing a lot of their good players in. So there's something behind the scenes that's not quite right, and they just wonder whether or not. They had such a great season last season, but this season really, the fact they got 1 goal in 5 games. Villa is not a particularly good, happy hunting place for us. Yeah. So, I think if we got a draw, probably not the worst result. I think if we score first, though, that could really put them under pressure. So it will be interesting. I think it'll be a pretty tight, low-scoring game.
Yeah, I've got to agree. What disturbed me about Unai Emery is he did a Mourinho. Remember years ago, Mourinho, a couple of minutes before the game ended, he went up to the opposing manager, shook his hand and walked down the tunnel. Emery did that, and I found that very strange. Something's not right, Steve. If I was having a bet, I would back Fulham to score over 1.5 goals at 2 to 1. I think you're going to have to score 2 goals to win. But something's not right with Aston Villa. I didn't like what I see. I thought they were going to destroy Sunderland, but they got outfought. And I don't like what I see with Aston Villa, so they won't have a penny of my money this week. And Steve, I think you've got a great chance to go there and get a result. I really do.
It would be, look, we won 2 on the spin in the league. It would be good to go there, get a result. It would, push us up the table. We'd be quite happy with that.
Yeah, I think your boys are looking quite slick. I like the combination in the middle of the park, giving nothing away. The boys can up front, take your chances, you never know. Big game on Sunday, Newcastle Arsenal. Steve, which way are you siding?
Yeah, look, I mean, last season was a big game and went against Arsenal.
Yeah.
Look, Arsenal are dropping points. They're already several behind Liverpool. And they can't afford to sort of lose pace. If Liverpool win at Palace and Arsenal don't win at Newcastle, all of a sudden, this gap gets big.
Yeah.
Arsenal dominated the second half last week. I think they'd probably be disappointed that they only scored the one at the end. Newcastle again at home, they are a hard team to beat. Obviously Liverpool caught them cold, but they've drawn. Their scoring goals has been their problem. Yeah. They've had three times. 3 out of 5 games they haven't scored. So I think that if Arsenal get ahead, I think this could be a tricky game. So to me, if there was to be a winner, I'd certainly go for Arsenal.
Yeah, I've got to agree, 12-10. I think the certainty bet here, Steve, over 4.5 bookings. Those Brazilians and the Tonali in the midfield, that's going to be fireworks in that middle of the park. I don't think there's any love lost between Newcastle and Arsenal. And I just don't trust Arteta. I don't think he's got it. I think the team's good enough. How he doesn't start Eze in the midfield has just amazed me. Once they're playing wide on the left. You've got a 100 million rand player in Declan Rice. You've got the Spanish midfield player. Just play Eze and 3 up front and have a go. I don't know if he'll do it again this week because going to St James's Park is tough. But if they don't get a result, you're right, Stephen. Liverpool do get a result. I think he's going to come under pressure. But somehow I think, he's going to sneak a 1-0 victory here. But bookings and a red card at 5-1 is my play for this particular game. And Monday night, the David Moyes revenge game, Steve.
Yeah. Well, look, this is the writing is on the wall for Graham Potter. Yeah. I mean, he's under huge pressure, and the board, the fans demonstrated before the game against the board, yeah. and what the board are going to look at the manager as the scapegoat. That the board aren't going to go anywhere, yeah. So the manager's head will roll. If they lose this and they lose badly, then I think that his days could be numbered.
Yeah, the only thing is Everton are a fairly negative team in the middle of the park, other than Grealish out wide. And I remember watching the West Ham Forest game. He just packed the midfield. I know Souček's out, but I think West Ham will be better away from home than at home. At home, they've got to go for it, and at the back, they're woeful. But I see Everton winning, but I think this is going to be a closer game. And I like Graham Potter, but I agree, Steve. I think the writing's on the wall. And David Moyes rested all his big guns last night. He's obviously looking for payback in this game. 8-10, sure, but if you...
I think you're right. I think that, as you say, Grealish will start, and I think it's if they go behind West Ham. Look, as you quite rightly, they are better away from home, and I think that they're under a lot of pressure because the fans get on their back at home. They go a goal behind, the fans really get on their back, and they've lost all 3 at home. Yet away, they're a little bit tidier. So, but I mean, a big defeat for them at the weekend, and I think that Graham Potter, whether he makes it to the international break, I'm not sure.
Yeah, everyone's talking, get Nuno. Oh, yeah, it's nice when you got, Nuno had 2 good centre halves. West Ham haven't got one. So if I was Nuno, Espirito Santo, I'd go nowhere near West Ham, even though it is a great club. On to the championship, and we've got a good game Friday night. West Brom, a little bit disappointing of late against Leicester City. Steve, which way are you going?
Yeah, this should be a good game. I mean, obviously they've got West Brom as favourites, but I think Leicester could get something.
Yeah,
I wouldn't be surprised if Leicester. For me, I think they maybe just slightly start as favourites, but they can certainly hold West Brom. West Brom have had a decent start. Obviously lost to Middlesbrough, but Leicester I think will be there or thereabouts. So for me, maybe a draw.
Yeah, I went for Leicester last week, Steve. It was a good game. The only problem I see with Leicester, they've got a whole lot of new players and their strike force, guys are going near post and the wingers are crossing at far post and vice versa. I thought they were the better team against Coventry. I saw the highlights, you would never think so. But they dictated much of the play. It's just that Coventry are on a bad side. But of the two sides, I like Leicester. And if you do want to have a bet, it's 12-10 Leicester in the draw no bet market. See, I couldn't take 6-10 win and draw, but I don't see Leicester losing the game, and been disappointed in West Brom of late. They've cost me a couple of rands, but of the two sides, I definitely fancy Leicester City. Coventry City, Birmingham City. Steve, this should be a good game Saturday lunchtime.
Yeah, it should be a good game, and almost a derby. I mean, they're not far apart. Coventry, when they win well, yeah. But they're not winning all their games, and I think that must be a little bit frustrating. That, they used up a lot of goals in those 2 wins against Derby and QPR. Yeah. I think they're certainly starters' favourites. But Birmingham, will have a big support there, and they've not set the division alight, but they're a hard team to beat. I think, for me, Coventry just start as favourites.
Yeah, I was really impressed. I know they've won 2 and drawn 4 of their 6 league games so far, but I was really impressed against them, against Leicester. They had a couple of great chances. Birmingham, I thought were going to be a little bit better, Steve. I know they won 3 of the 6, but away from home, they've lost 2 of the 6. I fancy Coventry of the two sides. Question, didn't Coventry play at Birmingham's ground, or was it the other way around?
Yeah, no, it was Coventry played at St Andrews a long time ago. Yeah.
Okay, of the two sides, I'm on Frank Lampard's side. Steve, Millwall got beat again in midweek. They've cost me big time in the championship. Swansea City at home. Good record. Fancy the home team?
Millwall won.
They beat Watford. Apologies.
Yeah, they beat Watford for their first home win. They're actually slightly better away from home, Millwall.
Yeah.
They've had a couple of wins away from home. I think this will be a tight game. Swansea, again, you're not quite sure what you're going to get with them. They play some good stuff, but they're not putting teams to the sword when they're on top. I think this will be a close game. As I say, Millwall have picked up more points away than they have at home. So I think this could be a close game.
Let's say it's in the exotic market. It's 1, 2, 3 lunchtime kickoffs. Always tight game. Wrexham, who won last night in the League Cup, beating Reading, at home against a Derby County side. They lost at home to Preston, even though they had a couple of late chances. Goals, Steve, always.
Wrexham, I think there'd definitely be goals with Wrexham. They had a very good result winning at Norwich last week, Wrexham. Yeah. I didn't really fancy them to do that, but the thing with them is there are goals in their games. They concede, but they score. So, and I think they will. For me, I think they'll be favourites that should win this one.
Yeah, 9-10, both teams to score, 11-10 over 2.5 goals. So that's my suggestion, that particular clash. Unfortunately for the Wrexham fans, I know 1 or 2 of them, they haven't won at home in 3 games this year. But one thing that's guaranteed, goals. Onto the second page, and a team I was impressed with last week, Steve, Charlton against Blackburn team. I couldn't believe, I know it was bucketing in Preston, the game got postponed against Ipswich. Which way are you siding?
Yeah, look, Charlton have had a decent start. I think that for a team that sort of scraped through the playoffs, I think they've done pretty well. And again, they were winning against Millwall until sort of the last minute or so recently. So, I think Charlton might just edge it. I think it could be a close game, but I fancy Charlton.
Yeah, Blackburn away from home. That guy Cantwell, since they've made their manager. I remember they went to Hull and won 3-0. I think there's goals in this, Steve. I know Charlton keep it tight, but Blackburn are good on the counter. I took the easy way out at 9.5-10, and that was a great price. Both teams to score. Oxford United at home to Sheffield United, Steve. 6 in a row. They got beat by Charlton last week. A little bit unlucky.
Bad defeats. I know, obviously, Chris Wilder's just gone back, and maybe it'll take him a little while to get things going. Oxford had a really good result. I think this was the one that sort of bust the bookies, sort of winning at Bristol City, and comfortable as well. They had a good result against Leicester recently. I fancy Oxford. I think those odds, for me, I think there's quite a bit of value in Oxford winning.
Yeah, just, with Sheffield United, they're going to keep it tight. Under 2.5 goals is certainty, but I'm happy for Oxford. They were everyone's favourites to go straight back down. Chris Wilder, it's not going to be easy turning that ship around, but got a funny feeling the draw 5-2 looks the right way, but good luck to Oxford United. Ipswich Town, At home against Portsmouth, Steve. Which way are you going?
Yeah, I think Ipswich should be too strong. I mean, they had a huge home win previously when they put 5 past Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Portsmouth, a little bit disappointing last week. Expected them to do well, and they lost.
Yeah.
I think that Ipswich will be too strong, and I fancy a fairly comfortable home win.
Yeah, so do I. I think this has got 3-1, 4-1 written all over it. But I won on the side. It was 33-10. Ipswich Town to win and both teams to score, yes. You know, I watched Portsmouth away at Southampton. They played really well at home. Other than beating Preston, I don't think they've won a game. But Ipswich Town, I think this is a time for them to make their comeback. And I think they're expected to beat Portsmouth at home. Stoke City, Norwich City, Steve. Norwich cost us a game last week. It's amazing how away from home they get the result. But at home, they can't get a result, yeah. Stoke City going great under Mark Robbins.
They are, particularly at home. I mean, they came unstuck last week away, but at home they're strong, and I think there'll be goals.
Yeah.
But I think for me, Stoke could just edge this one.
Yeah, I just looked over 2.5 total goals. Norwich City, Josh Sargent, he's 21-10 to score any time. If he starts, I'll be backing him. Stoke City under Mark Robbins, going well. Goals is the only way. Every time I go for Stoke, they let me down. So I'm going to play on the side of caution and go for over 2.5 goals. A final page in the championship, and it's the Invincibles. My hometown, Preston against Bristol City. We came up together a couple of seasons ago. This should be a close game, Steve.
Yeah, well, look, as of a sort of week or so ago, you know, I think we were singing sort of Bristol City's praises, and they go and get beaten at home by Oxford, and then your boys go and get a good result away from home.
Yeah.
At home, you're strong. I mean, I can see you holding Bristol, if not winning. You know, if Bristol play as they did in those sort of early weeks of the season, I think they will get something. But if they turn up, or they don't turn up as they didn't last week, you know, your boys could get another result and find themselves really climbing up the table.
Yeah, our former striker, Emile Rees, when I watched him twice, I wasn't impressed with him. His touch was bad, but he was injured most of last season. I couldn't believe it, Steve. He left Preston. He was on £8,000 a week to go to Bristol City on double the amount. I couldn't believe it. And when I saw the article about him, good luck to him. He's had a good start. I didn't see that result coming last week or last Sunday, Steve. I don't know whether it was cockiness or what, but that was a terrible result. I expect them to bounce back. I think this game's got 1-1 written all over it, 7-1. But hope my boys, we're having a good run. Love to see us get the 3 points at Deepdale. Sheffield Wednesday, great result last week away from home at Portsmouth. Can they get another result against the QPR side that have won 3 in a row?
Yeah. Well, you know, it was a really good result, and by all accounts played very well. But QPR, as you say, they won 3 in a row. Good win against Stoke last week, good win at Wrexham. So I fancy QPR could definitely go there and get a result.
Yeah, I think there'll be goals. You know, I saw over 2.5, 9-10, and both teams to score at the same price. I think there'll be goals in that, Steve. You just never know with QPR. They have tidied it up at the back. But Sheffield Wednesday got nothing to lose. Have they opened that stand yet for Sheffield Wednesday?
I'm not sure if they have. You know, and they still obviously got all the underlying issues with the ownership and you know, the not being able to bring buy players. So it's, you know, the fact that they're still sort of you know, keeping going, as it were, and had a good win. I think it's more down to the players than anything else. Yeah. But whether or not, you know, they haven't got a big squad, and whether if they've got 1 or 2 key, someone like Barry Bannon gets injured, who's the sort of driving heart of the team, you know, then I think that's going to be quite tough for them.
Yeah, they've lost their 3 home games, so hard to trust them. But I think they'll get on the score sheet, so I'm going both teams to score. A side that played well last night when losing to Liverpool, but I just don't like the style they play. Nothing's changed from the Martin era, playing out from the back, and I think teams have wisened up for this. Middlesbrough going great. Was it 5 wins and a draw? The draw at Deepdale last minute. I think the draw's written all over this. I think Middlesbrough are going to sit and look to counter on the break. But with their bad results of late, Steve, they've only won 1 in 6. I think fans are going to start jumping up and down.
For me, I think a draw looks you know, quite possible. But if it was to be a winner, I would go for Middlesbrough. I think they will keep it tight, and if they pinch a goal, I think Southampton are going to struggle too. Southampton have really struggled. I think a lot of people, they've had a lot of players come and go, but I think the fans are getting a little bit restless. For me, I think Borough just to edge it.
Yeah, and also, you know, Southampton playing at Anfield last night, flying around, now you've got to come back on Saturday, back to reality. So you say, I don't see Middlesbrough getting beat, but I think it'll be a tight game. And last but not least, Watford versus Hull City. I fancy your brother's team to get a result, Steve. Which way are you going now?
I mean, they've had a very up and down season.
Yeah.
It was a disappointing result for them on Monday night. But I think you're right. I think this is a game they're going to look at. Hull had a really good win, though, against Southampton. Sounded like Southampton had a lot of the ball, didn't do much with it, and Hull really punished them. But if Watford score first, I think they could win this. But it's a battle of the sort of gold shirts.
Yeah.
So, for me, sort of Watford just slight favourites.
Yeah, I've got to agree. I think there'll be goals, you know, that Ollie McBurney up front's definitely a handful, and to score 3 goals against Southampton, they'll come out flying. But I think this has got a Watford win, both teams to score written all over it. It's 7-2. Steve, pressure time as always. I need your best bet and value bet.
Well, I think, as you said, as the odds have drifted a little bit at 9-10, I'm quite happy to take Liverpool.
Yeah.
I think that they're finding a way to win when they're not at their best. I thought they played really well in the first half against Everton. You know, Everton, to be fair, came back into it. But, you know, this will be a tight game. Palace are going to not make it easy for them, and I think they'll be quite happy to sit back and try and catch them on the counter. For my value bet, I'm going to go for Oxford. I just think that they've surprised people with some of their results recently. And, you know, whilst Chris Wilder is still trying to come to grips with what he's got or hasn't got, I think Oxford might just upset them.
Yeah, well, I'm on Liverpool the same, Steve. I looked at this morning, I couldn't believe it. No, more than likely be even money after Ekitike's red card. But yeah, it's going for them. They're not really playing well, but when they played that 3-man midfield against Everton, they looked like last season's early season form, and they were too good for Everton. He's got to change it. He's got to play Wirtz. You know, he'll more than likely play his other $1 million man up front. But 4-2-4, I think it'll be a good game, but got to fancy Liverpool. I'm going to chance Bournemouth, Steve. I know going to Ellen Road and getting a result, but I just like the way they play. And, you know, Leeds will come bombing forward and get caught on the break. So I'm going to chance Bournemouth at 15-10. Steve, thanks as always, and we'll speak over the weekend.
I'm sure we will. Okay, cheers, Budge.
Cheers, Steve. So UK correspondent Stevie Brown. We now go on to our exotics for Saturday, and first one up is the Soccer Six. It is the PSL one, so I'm chancing Golden Arrows to avoid defeat at home against Orbit College. In the derby at Polokwane, I think Sekhukhune United will avoid defeat against Polokwane City. I've thrown the draw in with Chelsea at home to Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm going for Liverpool to continue their winning run to beat Crystal Palace. Going with Bournemouth to avoid defeat at Leeds United. And Real Madrid win and draw in the Madrid derby, 192. On to our second Soccer Six. I'm bankering my old club, Durban City, to beat Magezi. The field in the Swiss game between FC Zurich and FC St. Gallen. Inter Milan win and draw against Cagliari, banking Tottenham Hotspur to be too good for Wolverhampton. Again, the field in the Villarreal versus Athletic Bilbao fixture, and Lionel Messi's Inter Miami to avoid defeat in Toronto, 216. On to the Soccer 10 for Saturday. I'm going Golden Arrows win and draw at home against Orbit College. The field in the Polokwane City, Sekhukhune United and Wolfsburg versus RB Leipzig matches. Chelsea win and draw at home against Brighton, and banking Liverpool to beat Crystal Palace. On to our second page, I'm chancing Bournemouth to win at Leeds United, Real Madrid to avoid defeat against Atletico Madrid, and two bankers. Juventus to beat Atalanta, and Belgium's Club Brugge to beat Standard Liège, and I've thrown the draw in with Notts Forest at home against Sunderland, 288. On to the Soccer 13, where really difficult as always. Slew of bangers on our first page. Tottenham to beat Wolves, Nottingham Forest to beat Sunderland, Chelsea win and draw against Brighton, Liverpool to win at Crystal Palace, Man City to beat Burnley, Bournemouth to beat Leeds United, and Charlton Athletic win and draw at home against Blackburn Rovers. On to our second page, Sheffield United win and draw against Oxford United. Going for my beloved Preston North End to avoid defeat at home against Bristol City. Queen's Park Rangers win and draw at Sheffield Wednesday. Southampton win and draw at home against Middlesbrough. Norwich City win and draw at Stoke City. And chancing Watford to beat Hull City, 256. On to our budgies bets for the weekend, and I'm going Liverpool to win at Crystal Palace. Over 2.5 goals, both teams to score no in the Man City versus Burnley clash, and Tottenham to score in both halves against Wolves, 2,500 to 200. My team goals sides are Bournemouth, Liverpool, Tottenham and Everton, all to score over 1.5 goals, 2,200 to 200. On to the Championship, and I'm going for Coventry City to beat Birmingham City, Ipswich Town to beat Portsmouth and both teams to score, and then over 2.5 total goals in the Stoke versus Norwich City game, 2,400 to 200. My both teams to score sides are Wrexham Derby County, Charlton Blackburn, Sheffield Wednesday QPR, and Watford Hull City, 2,200 to 200. On to Spain, I'm going Getafe to beat Levante in the Saturday lunchtime kickoff. I'm going Barcelona to beat Real Sociedad to 0, and Valencia to beat Real Oviedo on Monday, and over 2.5 total goals, 3,100 to 200. And our Collis King 6 or Nixa. I'm going Liverpool to beat Crystal Palace, Man City to beat Burnley, Tottenham to beat Wolves, Bayern Munich to beat Eintracht Frankfurt, Getafe to beat Levante, and Valencia to beat Real Oviedo, 3,300 to 200. Guys, have a great sporting weekend, and please remember to stay on side.